My name is Dwayne McKenzie. I'm a solutions architect here at Data Networks, and I'm joined by Paul Don, who's a systems engineer from PulseSecure. Paul's going to go over some of the challenges and solutions that PulseSecure offers. We'll actually be going over some of the features, and I do see that some of our attendees are actual PulseSecure and Data Networks customers, so thank you for joining. We'll actually be going over some optimization strategies with the solutions that you have today. Just a little background, Data Networks has been around over 35 years. We've been working with K through 12, higher ed, state and local government and commercial customers throughout that time. We have a slew of engineering resources. We do everything from network and systems assessments through solution design, implementation, and we actually have a managed services arm as well, so that we can actually control the full life cycle of our solutions that we provide to our customers. Data Networks is also a partner of PulseSecure. We've been working with PulseSecure for as long as I've been with the company, so at least 15 years. Long before they were actually PulseSecure. And we do offer solutions in the security space, such as PulseSecure, but we also offer client and user computing solutions, data center storage and compute solutions, AV, and as well as cloud services. So with no further ado, I am going to turn over the presentation to my colleague, Paul.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. I just want to first start with a little background on PulseSecure. We were founded about 20 years ago as Neoterra, the first SSL VPN vendor on the market, and have grown quite a bit since then. We spent a bit of time at Juniper, so some of our customers know us as Juniper or Junos Pulse, part of Juniper, but about 5 years we spun off from Juniper because Juniper was spending a lot more effort on their switching products, and we wanted to be able to focus more around security and providing access to endpoints. So just a little bit about us. We are fairly mature as a company. We have over 23,000 customers, including 80% of the Fortune 500 and 12 of the 15 cabinet level agencies in government. And that includes over 20 million endpoints that are currently being secured by PulseSecure. We do have a full suite of zero trust access solutions. We have Connect Secure for our remote access or VPN, Policy Secure, which does the same thing, but is a MAC product, so it provides the same level of security for internal users. Our Workspace, which is an MDM product, VADC, which we recently acquired from Brocade, which is a full-fledged application delivery controller. And then we have just now releasing our SDP product, or software-defined perimeter. That enhances the capability of managing access into a single suite for both local and remote users. I just want to start with some of the access challenges we're seeing within our customer base and within the market today. Of course, with the outbreak of COVID-19, there is massive change within the market. And within our customer base, there's rapid growth of the need to move to remote access solutions. So what we're seeing is, within what we've been doing for some time, which is everyone working remotely, and in fact, I don't remember the last time I actually was inside our corporate offices. Other companies that maybe haven't been used to this are having to scale up and move out very rapidly. What we heard from one of our large banking customers was that they had to do what they would normally do in 6 months and 6 days to prepare for COVID-19. So of course that puts everybody under immense pressure, and the need to move becomes, has some challenges that go along with it. Of course, scaling out very quickly becomes challenging. What we're seeing is organizations that thought they were ready for larger numbers of their users going remote realize that no, they aren't. And this can be part of the VPN solution, or it may even be something simple like most of the users use desktops And so a desktop isn't easy for somebody to bring home. And so what we were actually seeing was even laptop companies were having problems fulfilling all the orders for new laptops. Just like we were having issues fulfilling orders for new hardware and getting that out the door very quickly, especially with California where the hardware is produced under lockdown. As people that maybe haven't used remote access technology ever or in the long people were having problems with the user experience, people understanding how to use the clients, how to access things, what they have access to through the remote access. So of course, this put a lot of strain on the end users, but it also put strain on the help desk. They suddenly got a big influx of people who have never used this technology before and now need help getting it up and running. Next, we saw people saying, okay, well, before, most of our security was internal. Now that people are going home or working remotely, how do we make sure that our policies are enforced as people work remotely and our data stays protected, that we suddenly aren't moving our crown jewels out to unprotected endpoints or allowing unprotected endpoints into our network to infect the network as a whole. And then finally, how do I make sure that this is simple and integrates with all the solutions that we've already put in place and all the security that we've put in place? So with that, we've heard a few more things, and these really go along with the challenges and what people have been saying. Say, in order to address all of these issues, they need to make sure that they do a few things. First, they have proper capacity planning. And this is capacity planning for the short term as well as the long term. So the short term is, of course, right now, this COVID-19 is producing this huge spike in utilization. And without proper planning for that, that can not just not allow you to support the new users, but maybe even degrade the performance of your existing users. Because as the VPN hardware becomes overwhelmed, the existing users aren't able to access the resources they want either. And this can happen with dedicated VPN solutions like ours, as well as firewall integrated VPN solutions with the next-gen firewalls. It may be that it handles it great for a small number of users, but as you scale up, you need additional hardware. So people need to actually make sure they plan for that in the short term. And then on the longer term, what we're hearing is there will be a new normal, that many more companies will be starting work from home programs, that within that, people will be working from home more. My wife, whose company had never considered a work from home program and was very resistant to it, now says after this, there will be at least 50% work from home. And we're hearing this from a lot of our customers. In fact, 47% of the CIOs that we've been talking to have been saying that. Because of this, and because people need to access from various endpoints to access different resources, we found that people now need to allow access from things like BYOD devices or personal laptops that maybe they didn't consider before. Maybe things like contractors or vendors need access, hadn't needed access before because they would just come into the office. And so what we're seeing is that people want to be able to manage their managed endpoints, those corporate or government school system owned assets, differently from the unmanaged endpoints to give each of them an appropriate level of access. And so, those managed endpoints, those laptops that you've issued and you've secured, you may say we have a very high level of trust in those and we're willing to put them on our network, give them layer 3 access so they're working just like they're inside the office. But, a personal laptop, maybe we're checking that for viruses and checking that the antivirus and updates are updated, but we're still only giving it very limited access, or maybe no direct access at all, and you have to allow the user to access through VDI or RDP. So that makes it, these decisions about what type of access you want each user to have, very important. And then with that, you really need to make sure that you know not just who the user is through multi-factor authentication, but what device they're coming in at. So we call that host checking. to determine not just is the endpoint secure, but what type of endpoint is it? Is it one of your endpoints? Is it a personal endpoint? Is it a laptop? Is it a phone? And all of these will drive your access decision. And then, of course, finally, a lot of organizations, because they needed to work so quickly and scale up so fast, they really needed to make sure they had a trusted solutions provider to work with them and make sure they were working with us and getting the right capabilities put in place. And so we definitely worked a lot more with our partners, like data networks, in order to make sure that all of this is provided in a very smooth way of the end users. And they're able to get the support they need as they go along. So next, I'll talk about the Pulse Secure solution and some of the features that address some of the needs we've been seeing, and maybe some ways to optimize existing implementations if you're an existing Pulse customer. Thank you very much. So first, for those of you that aren't as familiar with Pulse, we are a comprehensive remote access solution. And by that, I mean we handle every phase of the user access. So first, authenticating a user using strong authentication and integrating into whatever authentication source you prefer. Next, validating the device is an appropriate device through our host checker, and then using that information in our role-based access control engine to then give the user an appropriate level of access. And I touched upon these, that may be layer 3 access, where the user is put on your network. There may be layer 4 access, where they're going to a proxy and getting access to a limited application, or it may be what we call layer 7 access, or clientless access through our web portal, so that the user can access resources like intranet websites, file servers, VDI environments without needing a client on their endpoint. Now, with this, we want to make sure that it is as easy as possible for users, no matter how it's set up. The first thing is a single client across every platform. So we support all the major platforms, Windows, Macs, iOS, Android, Linux, Chromebooks. What you have, we probably support. And we have a single look and feel and capability set for our clients across all of those platforms to make sure that no matter what the user is using, they have an easy way to use it. This client is also made to be as easy as possible to use, whether you're using the traditional user clicks connect to access resources, or you have an always-on VPN that gives the user the appropriate level of access without ever having to interact with the client, an on-demand VPN, a per-app VPN. All of these allow you to increase security by limiting access while making it easier for that end user. And really, our goal is to provide high levels of security while being as minimally invasive as possible. So, breaking that old adage that the more security you add, the harder it is for the end user. We want to add security while also making it easier. Along with that, client-based access, which is really most appropriate for the devices that you manage, those corporate or government-owned devices, clientless access has become very popular. And for a few reasons, of course, it's very simple. We can provide access to a computer sitting within the office, either a VDI environment, terminal service, or the user's own PC sitting on their desk through a single portal. This can be done even without a client using our HTML5 capability. So it allows for very simple access into the organization without having to worry about what's on the endpoint, whether it's a Windows endpoint or a Mac endpoint, whether it's even a tablet that the user has. In fact, as this was starting off, and all of our customers were scrambling to add capacity, I was working 14, 16 hours a day. And I was talking with my sister, who said, I don't understand, Paul, why are you working so much? Everyone else is. is slowing down. And so I was explaining to her what I did and what a VPN does. And she said, actually, I mean, you guys should just do what I do. I just log into a portal and I have access to my desktop and it's super simple. I don't do anything. That's way better than VPN. And I said, that's actually what we do. That's clientless VPN. And after a little bit more digging, it turns out she was using our product. And I just had never known that in the past. So it becomes very easy for people to use this. These are other options that are maybe currently within the product that you've already purchased, that if you haven't thought about how to implement them or how they would be used, maybe that's a capability you should be looking into. Of course, as we do this, we make sure that, that we keep these sessions secure. So that's at the beginning, as I said, we have strong multi-factor authentication and device authentication and authorization. But we want to make sure that we're able to first integrate with whatever authentication mechanism you have. So newer authentication mechanisms like SAML 2.0 have become very popular, and it allows users to authenticate in the same way they do, say, Office 365 or other web applications. So we want to make it simple for that end user. And we also make sure that we continue to check as we go along. So as the session is maintained, we keep checking the endpoint. So if anything changes, we can either remove that user or remediate the problem as it occurs, so that it's not just one and done. It's making sure we maintain that high level of security. And that's really what the stateful endpoint compliance is, making sure that everything is secured when the user connects to the network. So they have, antivirus or anti-spyware installed, that it's patched. And what's amazing is how many attacks happen and are enabled by just not patching endpoint computers or allowing computers onto the network that are not patched. So just checking for the patch level of the computer and making users patch their computers before they come on the network can add a high level of security to the network. And of course, it's not either you allow them on or you don't. You can say, I will allow you on, but only in a remediation role. So you can fix the problem, come back into compliance, and then continue on with your day. So we help you work through it and make the endpoint compliant with security policy before going on.
Hey, Paul, we do have a question from one of our participants before you move on. She would like to know who some of your competition is in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say that for our entire access suite, there are different vendors for different portions of the access suite. We don't have really a competition along the whole local remote access, as well as application delivery management and SDP. But speaking specifically about VPN, I'd say probably the biggest competition is around the bolt-on VPN, the next-gen firewalls, which would be FortiGate, Palo Alto networks, maybe F5 networks. Those are probably the biggest competition.
Okay, and we do have one more question. It says, do you set the patch level for each device, or is that automatically set in the appliance? Can you explain a little more about this feature?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the patch requirements are configurable by the administrator, and they are configurable even down to groups of users. So it's not for everyone connecting. You can say, if say you're getting layer 3 access, we can require patches. And if you're getting clientless access, well, then your computer never touches our network, so we don't care. So you can look for specific groups within the network, and then you choose what patches are important to you. So it's based on categories of patches. So it may be things like, roll-up updates, security updates, driver updates, all the various categories that Microsoft uses, and then the severity level. So, important, critical, bug, and then I believe there's a fourth. So, maybe, unimportant driver updates, you don't require those, but the important security updates you do require. So you're able to granularly choose those.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul. Those are all the questions for now.
So one thing that we found as people needed to scale up quickly was, whereas in the past they may have only looked at hardware appliances, more and more people are looking at virtual appliances either on-premise or within public clouds like AWS and Azure. Just in my experience, about 3 years ago, almost everybody was purchasing physical appliances, and I had almost no virtual appliance customers. But over the past 3 years, it's really shifted a lot towards organizations looking at virtual deployments for both their VPN and, of course, as a virtual first and cloud first strategy for the organization to minimize the footprint of their data centers. So we just want to make sure that you're able to consume our products in whatever way works best for you, either as a physical appliance or virtual, no matter where you want to put that virtual access. Now, a few things about what we've been learning about our licensing. So we primarily license based on concurrent user licensing. We also have an option for named users if organizations prefer that. So you can, you don't have to worry about, how many users are connecting at any given time. You just say, this is how many users I want to connect. But what we found is ICE licenses, or in case of emergency, which is a burst license that allows you to have max out the capacity of the appliance for an 8-week period of time. And as this started, many of our customers said, we want ICE licenses, we want ICE licenses. And I actually steered a lot of customers away from that because it's for an 8-week period of time. So it's really great. It's a license that you turn on and off as needed. If there's a snow day, or inclement weather, you can turn it on for a day or two and then still have, 7 weeks and 5 days left over for the next time. And our customers have been using this to handle, the burst capacity or days where they need large amount of capacity for a while. But of course, COVID-19 is not like that. We're now 8 weeks into it. Tomorrow, my children will have been at home for 8 weeks. Not that I'm counting, but that means that this could go on for a long time, and having to buy an ICE license and then rebuy it again after 8 weeks isn't the best strategy for a longer term case like this. For that, we've been really looking more at 1-year subscription licenses, where you can purchase additional capacity that will allow you to use it for longer periods of time. But after the year is up, maybe next year when you don't have nearly as many users, those licenses can go away. You don't have to pay for a perpetual license when you don't need this as a perpetual license. You only need it for this period of time. And we've had a lot of these discussions with customers about, there's a peak now, what would you need for that? And then thinking about where you'll be a year from now and how you may be changing your work from home policies or your remote access policies, and then planning for that as well. So you don't have to kind of keep going back and forth, back and reviewing what you have and planning again and again. And so maybe some of our customers purchased larger appliances so they could handle what they think they'll need from a year from now, and then also purchase subscription licenses. The other part of this is virtual appliances. Just like those subscription licenses, virtual appliances are very flexible. You can purchase appliance for a year. If you just need it right now, spin it up now, and then a year from now when you no longer need it, you can shut it off and be done and not have any more payments. It's much less expensive than actually purchasing physical hardware if you only need it for a short period of time. It's also very flexible. So even customers that are planning to use it over longer periods, it allows you to plan for possibly a future migration to Azure, because of course there's no difficulty in moving a virtual appliance like there is a physical appliance. When you have a physical appliance in a data center, it becomes very difficult to move. But a virtual appliance, you can just shut off the appliance in your data center and spin one up in Azure or AWS and there move the license. So it becomes easy to plan for the future and work with how you're going to maybe change your network in the future. Along with that, I just want to talk about some things that we've been learning because, of course, us, along with all the other VPN vendors in the market, we've been doing real-world stress testing. And so we've been working with customers on how to maximize the capabilities of the investment they've already purchased. The first is actually pretty straightforward. Many of our customers, for high availability, were implementing active passive clusters. And so we said the easiest way to double your capacity, or almost double, it's not quite, but almost double, is just change it to an active-active cluster. And that allows both appliances to work together rather than one being active and one sitting there waiting. The next is, of course, split tunneling, enabling split tunneling so the user's personal traffic doesn't go through that VPN tunnel. You know, it's great to reduce the traffic through the tunnel so that you can get as many users having the best performance as possible. You don't want somebody's YouTube traffic to be going through your VPN because that bandwidth could be used for somebody downloading an important, PowerPoint that they plan to use. And we'll make sure that everyone has the best experience. There's one particular feature, HTML5, an RDP feature. We had many of our users turn this on because it becomes a very simple way for people to access. People are able to access internal computers through RDP directly in their browser without any installation of any software. It's very simple, very great. It uses a lot of CPU use cycles. So what they're finding is as they had more and more users that were shifting over to HTML5 because it was so simple, it was taking away CPU from the bandwidth from the tunnels, the VPN tunnels. So it's a great feature. People love it and use it, but make sure you size accordingly for it if you plan to use it. And then finally, this is probably one of the first things I always look for whenever checking out capacity. Our VPN tunnel is a dual mode tunnel. It does both ESP, which is a form of IPsec tunnel, as well as SSL. And the client will dynamically change between the two. This is great for access. So when people are in good access environments, they use an ESP tunnel. They get the fastest performance. And if they're in, say, maybe a poor connectivity situation or a situation where high UDP ports are blocked, it automatically flips back to SSL. So they still get that robust connectivity. But the ESP tunnels by default go on UDP 4500. So I've seen a lot of implementations where UDP 4500 was not enabled through the firewall, so everybody was failing back to SSL mode. This SSL puts more strain on the CPU and will overall lower the bandwidth. So just making sure UDP 4500 is enabled and our clients can access our appliance using that can do a lot to making sure you maximize the capacity and the throughput of that appliance, whether it's physical or virtual.
Paul, before we move on, we do have a question about licensing. The question is, for accounts that may have locations or employees in other countries, is there any additional licensing or configuration that is required?
Generally not. So of course, with virtual licensing and virtual appliances, that can all just be done through the US, and you can deploy it wherever you want. Additionally, if you're actually shipping hardware to other countries, we can ship that through local distributors if you prefer, so you can get directly to its location. And all the licensing costs are handled by, managed by the reseller. And if you want, they can even come back to a licensed server in the United States.
Great, thank you.
So now I'm just going to pivot a little bit to VADC. VADC is a virtual application delivery controller. Pulse acquired this product about 2 years ago from Brocade. It is the leading virtual application delivery controller on the market. What we're finding is as users were scaling up in capability, they needed to make sure that they had robust performance, not just in a single appliance, but between multiple appliances. And that's really where VADC shines. It is a few things. So first, it is a virtual traffic manager. This does load balancing as well as global traffic management between sites. It also does like a web application firewall. This is a layer 7 firewall. So it actually looks at protocols and looks for attacks within those protocols. Anybody that's had to comply with PCI DSS, very familiar with this. But this allows you to make sure that multiple web servers can handle load efficiently, that you're able to offload certain capabilities like maybe SSL decryption from those web servers so they scale better, as well as being able to handle the global separation. The main difference between the ADC and other ADCs on the market, like an F5 or an Netscaler, is the ADC was built from the ground up to be virtual. So in virtual environments, either on-premise or in cloud, we have unparalleled performance. And in fact, many of our largest customers are customers that needed to have multiple hundreds of gigabits per second through AWS. The other big difference is it has a licensing model called Services Director. And Services Director is like the Pulse licensing server. You're able to put a bucket of bandwidth on Services Director, and then Service Director can give that licensed bandwidth to as many actual traffic managers or load balancers as you want. So if, say, you had a gigabit of bandwidth, you could have 110 megabit load balancers, or 2 500 megabit load balancers, or 1 gigabit load balancer. But this allows you to easily manage where that bandwidth is going and where you can use it. It also allows you to have individual load balancers for different applications. So you don't need to have a single monolithic load balancer within your network, and you can easily redistribute that bandwidth as needed. This is really popular in DevOps environments where the DevOps team wants to have their own load balancers. So they don't have to wait as long for change windows and things like that. With our VPN appliances, of course, it's mainly working to load balance. So in active environments, you need to have a load balancer managing traffic between those two appliances. VADC, being a Pulse product, works very well with the Pulse appliances. It will query the PCS appliance to get things like the health of the appliance, the load on the appliance, how many licenses are currently available on the appliance. So it can intelligently manage the traffic between those appliances. And you can scale horizontally very well, both for the PCS appliances and the traffic managers. And then, of course, along with the local load balancing, there's global traffic management, so that you can easily route users through a single connection to different locations. Maybe you have regional data centers, and you want users to, as they move around the world, connect to the local data center. Maybe it's just that you want the global traffic manager to be monitoring the health and the availability of each of the appliances, and making sure that you're sending the user to appliance the least amount of load on it. But whatever it is, of course, we can route between them. This is also a feature that you can use without any additional licensing. With the community edition of VADC, you can stand up a couple of VADC appliances and use a global traffic manager without any additional licensing.
Thanks, Paul. I'm going to go get into a real-time case study. We actually have a customer, is a Pulse Secure customer that uses, I'm trying to advance the slide, Paul. Okay. They're actually a Pulse Connect Secure customer. They had the Connect Secure appliance in place. It was really used by IT and administrators to work off hours. They really didn't have a lot of remote access for large scale use until, of course, the COVID-19 crisis started and the requirement for the number of users grew by an order of magnitude, where suddenly they needed to have from 500 concurrent users to almost 5,000 concurrent users. They quickly turned on their in case of emergency license, which basically allowed them to have full capacity on their appliances. And also, as Paul had mentioned, quickly realized that they didn't need to give all of those users, and more importantly, all of those devices, direct network connectivity to their internal network. What they had to do was actually go to the Pulse Connect Secure appliance and implement the zero trust approach that we do to security, where we say that we only want a user to access those specific resources that they require access to and know what device they're on. So we know who they are, what they are, and where they are. So what they ended up doing was they created multiple roles within the Connect Secure appliance, basically allowing the IT users their full access, so that didn't really change. For people that had corporate devices, they created a couple of different roles and gave them different access. Administrators were given full network access to the resources that they required in the data center. As an example, I'm just bringing out a finance role where they actually were allowed RDP access to their desktops so that they would actually be working on a system that was inside the network. Anyone else that had an actual corporate device was given what they called the power user role. Now, they were actually, based on that role, were only allowed access to things like internal applications and file shares. They did not have access to any devices. One of the cool things that they did was they allowed a general user role where they were given clientless access. So basically those users from any device, they could be at home on their home computer, would literally go to a website. Based on their login, they would get access to the resources they required. And an interesting side note to this, I was on my family Zoom call over the weekend, and a cousin I hadn't talked to for a long time mentioned that he had to be working from home now, and that it was the easiest thing he'd ever done. He said they literally sent him an email with a link, and he's working on his desktop in his classroom remotely. And I didn't realize he had moved. And I just asked where he was working, and literally he was working at this customer at their site. So to reiterate what Paul said, when you can make it very easy on the users and keep it secure, you get a really good result. So we'll open it up now. If you have any other questions for Paul or I, let me get there. I don't see any here, Jamie. There we go. If you do want to get any more information about the Pulse Connect Secure solution and the other pieces of the solution, you can give us a call here at Data Networks, or you can email info@datanetworks.com. We also have a website out there. You can contact us as well directly. I did see a bunch of our customers on there. If you guys have any direct questions. So we do have a question from Ashley. Ashley, I'm going to actually send that over to Paul. Can you message your contact information and we'll give you a call directly? Uh-oh.
Just so that everybody knows.
There we go. Go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
No, I was just going to actually read her question just so that in case anyone wasn't seeing it. The question was, we set up MFA with Azure Active Directory and realized that we lost the ability to assign roles. Why is that? And so what you're saying is that you'll contact her directly, correct? To troubleshoot the problem?
Correct.
Okay. Great. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. And the one thing I did want to mention, I did send it out over chat, but we will be sending out the Grubhub gift cards via the email that you used for registration, and that will be getting to you probably today, if not within the next business day. And just be sure to check your spam folder and feel free to contact us directly if there's any issues with that.
And Jamie, another question did come in,
Okay.
and the question is, am I understanding you correctly? Is the Pulse device able to determine if the connecting device is a corporate issued device?
Yes, that's correct. So we do this through a variety of mechanisms. You can look to see if the device is domain joined, and if it's domain joined, then you can say, yes, it's a corporate device. More commonly, organizations issue device certificates to their own devices, whether it's a laptop or a mobile device. They use either their corporate domain to issue certificates to the laptops, and then MDMs for non-domain joined devices. And then we do a check for that certificate and say if that certificate is present, then it's a domain joined asset, and if not, then it's not.
Okay, so I think unless anybody has any further questions, we just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and certainly reach out to us with any questions. And then also we're offering a free demo if that interests you as well. So unless anybody has anything else, I think we're all set.
Excellent. Thanks everyone for coming out virtually to our webinar.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.